know that is happening. One of those little nightmares that people have running Zoom presentations is you forget to record it. So welcome to Nervous System Care for Empaths. This is a presentation that emerged from a recent shorter presentation that I've popped in YouTube. That is something that people can find in YouTube, or if you subscribe to my website, it is an offering that you receive as a thank you gift. And it just felt like some of the information that I shared in there was worth expanding on. So you are here if you recognise that you have certain gifts and sensitivities. You might have adopted an identity such as being a highly sensitive person or an autistic person, somebody who thinks of themselves as an empath, a light worker, spiritually aware, or you may have received diagnoses of autism, ADHD, or have another neurodivergent identity or diagnosis. This is a neuroaffirming presentation, and my desire is to be really warm and inclusive to anyone who happens to watch it today or in the future. I would love to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from Whadjuk Noongar land, and I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land that was never ceded, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and would also like to extend a warm welcome to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people attending this webinar today or watching it in the future. So one of the aims of this presentation is, I'm just admitting somebody, one of the aims of this presentation is to reclaim the word sensitive and make it more of a positive attribute that we can embrace and celebrate. The issue that can come up with us if we were described as sensitive by caregivers or parents, relatives when we were younger, was that it had a negative overtone. And we might have just picked it up from our environment that to be sensitive was often to be too sensitive. What I want to present today is that there is no such thing as too sensitive. We merely need to recognise that with sensitivity comes great power, and it is actually part and parcel of our spiritual awareness, our perceptiveness, our high amounts of empathy, our creative gifts, our healing gifts. It's all just packaged together. And if we can look after our nervous systems, then we can celebrate being sensitive rather than find it hard. Okay, so what we're going to do is run through a few different topics within the hour and a half, and I'll just give you an outline so that you know where we're heading and you understand what we'll be covering up front. So I'm going to begin with speaking in a reasonable amount of detail about sensory and emotional sensitivities and talk about the idea of doing a sensory audit. I'm then going to speak about how we, as sensitive people, can end up leaning on our intellect and avoiding following our intuition. The third part of this presentation is to discuss the importance of emotional connection and being able to be vulnerable with safe people for us. I'm then going to give you a really quick introduction to my new 7-week coaching program for women, sensitive women, no surprise, which starts in 2 weeks' time on the 3rd of June. And then we will have 20 minutes set aside for a beautiful channeled meditation. These meditations I've been delivering regularly in little Zoom classes in the last 4 months and on different topics. And they're really gorgeous because they just literally come through me as a channel, and it'll allow you to, my intention with this channeled meditation is that you can connect with your higher guidance, and your guides will get a chance to give you some specific information about something to do with this conversation around sensitivity and gifts. So let's just jump straight into the first topic, which is sensory and emotional sensitivities. Those of us who are here can probably recognise and have already worked out that we are more sensitive to many forms of stimulus. We're more sensitive to electromagnetic radiation from computers, lighting, large buildings like hospitals and airports have a lot of electromagnetic radiation in them, televisions, microwaves. We're also more sensitive just to electric devices in general. And that can be because of the energetic radiation coming off them. It could also be to do with sounds they produce, light they produce, lots of different aspects of that our nervous system is registering, often behind the scenes, and we're not always consciously aware of. So we're sensitive to screens, to light, to sound. We're often more sensitive to environmental chemicals, food additives, sugar, alcohol, any drugs, whether they be recreational drugs or medications. We're very sensitive to a lack of sleep and poor nutrition. So that's just a snapshot. You may have other things that you're specifically sensitive to, but that's kind of like a catch-all for the majority of us who identify as sensitive. We're the kind of people who need to be aware of following fad diets and health trends because our nervous systems may not be suitable for some of the things that other people are jumping into willy-nilly. So I'm talking about listening to your intuition and your body before you engage in things like even cacao rituals, sound healing, breath work, plant medicine, such as using ayahuasca or the other one, I think it's called kava. Even the ice baths and the saunas, and definitely things like sweat lodge, any rituals or processes that are taking you to a more extreme state of mind and nervous system arousal. We need to be, it's not saying that we can't do these things, we just need to know what feels like it would be safe for us. And I'll just, put my hand up and say, I don't do any of the aforementioned things. I have done a cacao ritual once and it didn't agree with me. Well, it did. It took me on a journey, but it was fairly intense and very emotionally triggering. And it took me about 3 hours to come out of that with some support from others around me. So that then alerted me to the sensitivity that I have with things like even like cacao. And we're all different. I'm just making sure everyone's muted because I think I just heard some sound come through. Where are we all? Yes, all good. Somebody must have just done it for themselves. Thank you. So that was probably 7 or 8 years ago when cacao first started becoming more commonly known. We also need to be aware spiritually that some of these rituals and ceremonies that we engage in are culturally incorrect for us. Let's just say that. They're either incorrect or it's like we just get dropped. We just get floated over a foreign country in a hot air balloon and we just shimmy down a rope and land in an Amazonian jungle and say, hey, I'm just going to do what you're doing and use your medicines. We're not culturally acclimatized, let's just say it that way, to these substances, these processes. We haven't grown up in it. We haven't been gradually introduced. It just has been picked up by certain Western people sometimes. And I'm not saying that there are lots of people that go to the correct places and get the correct training and have all the right safeguards in place, because there are definitely very ethical practitioners. But there are people that have the best of intentions but don't understand the potential dangers for more sensitive people when they're exposed to these rituals and ceremonies and substances. So, yes, I hope some of that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, certainly, Prue.
Oh, thank you. How do you know if you're a sensitive person? How do you know?
You're here, and so you are. Something about this spoke to you. And if you resonate with other sensitive people, Prue, then that's a really good sign. Yeah, if you feel an alignment with other sensitive people and any of the information presented today feels like a welcome, relaxing, soothing recognition, then that's a good sign. Thank you for asking. You weren't here at the very beginning. We'll probably hold off on other interactions for the remainder, just because I've got a fair bit to get through, and there'll be time at the end to chat and ask. So maybe if you just want to note down things or write them in the chat box in the Zoom presentation, that's also totally fine. But thanks for interacting, Prue. All good. I'll carry on. So we kind of know we've usually had, by the time we hit probably 30 years of age, we probably had experiences that tell us that we don't fit into, and Prue's just helped to prompt me to say a little bit more about what makes us know that we're sensitive. If you found it hard to fit in the mainstream world, such as I call it the workaday world, where you go to work, you get up at 7 or 6 in the morning, you go to work all day, you come home, you socialise, you cook, you clean, you shop, you do all those things that the neurotypical world seem to be able to do, and you thrive in that. That means you're not overly sensitive. That means you fit into the standard lifestyle that we've adopted in Western culture. If you're somebody who has experienced versions of burnout where you've ended up exhausted or ill or emotionally drained, or you've had relationship issues such as marriages breaking up, or having trouble finding a long-term partner, having a great amount of stress in life, particularly if you've been a parent and had to work. If you found all that, if you felt that that's been hard, and I did, just put myself in that category. I worked out very early on when my kids were born that I couldn't be a mother and a psychologist, and I pulled away from my professional role for many years in preference to having a simpler lifestyle where I got to prioritise my own well-being. And that was a very privileged situation that I was in. Not everybody gets to choose that, but yeah, if you're somebody who's just known over the years that you find everyday life exhausting as other people seem to be able to lead it, then you are a sensitive person, and you're probably in possession of spiritual gifts. So one of the antidotes to all of that is to recognise that we need silence. All human beings need silence. We need to, and these days we need to actually carve out time for silence. And it's really hard to find absolute silence in this world. So even if you're inside your house, you may be able to hear distant traffic. You may be able to hear a neighbour, a power tool, a lawnmower, an alarm going off somewhere, a siren. You still may be able to hear things in the background. If you live in a beautiful part of the world and you have a lot of nature around you, then the type of silence you have is only punctuated by birdsong or the sound of the wind in the trees. It might be quite a calming sort of background sound. So regardless of how the silence sounds, if you really tune in, we need to claim silence for ourselves. We are not equipped in our brains to continually process and filter all of the modern stimulation that we have coming into our nervous system, into our senses. So many of us are overstimulated because we are interested in learning and entertaining ourselves. So it'll be with sound and intellectual inputs, like listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos and scrolling social media, watching television, listening to music, and then just the noise that we're exposed to in the world, out in the street, in the car, in our workplace. We're also visually overstimulated by, believe it or not, signage out in the world. Signs can be very overstimulating. There's too many lights, colours, shapes, fonts. There's too much going on. lights that we're exposed to inside our homes and outside, cars that are on the road that we're driving, that's very visually stimulating. Screens obviously give us a lot of visual input. Going to shops, being in supermarkets and big shopping centres is very visually overstimulating for us. So we've got the overstimulating stuff, and that can also be affecting other senses like touch. So if you're a mother with small children, you often get overstimulated with little humans touching you, needing to be touched. Taste can be overstimulating depending on the sorts of foods that we challenge ourselves to eat. And just that energetic overstimulation of the emotions of the world, being exposed to the news, being exposed to other people's stories, other people's lives, being an empathic person and caring, that can create a very strong feeling of nervous system overstimulation. We can also be understimulated in other ways. So there are other senses. So we have our 5 senses of sight, of hearing, of seeing, of touch, of taste, of I always forget one when I say this list. Touch, taste, hearing, sound. Somebody tell me. I always miss one out. I was like, what is it? And then it's the most obvious thing.
Smell?
Smell. Thank you. Thanks, Ches. I don't think it's always smell that I miss out, but it's one. It's just like I can't present it live in the moment ever. I think I've ended up with a complex about it. I'm always going to forget one. So we also have proprioception, which is the feeling of things on our bodies and how we interact with the world by touching and lifting things and pushing things and pulling things. That's proprioceptive stimulation. So we may not actually, in our world these days, we may not get enough of that. So that can involve feeling satisfied with lifting weights, or doing a yoga session where we do a bit of holding our own body weight, doing things like sweeping, raking, vacuuming, believe it or not, carrying things that are heavy in a backpack to ground us, to feel like we're using the muscles in our bodies, and the nervous system is being often soothed by this sort of an activity. So sometimes we need more stimulation of a proprioceptive variety. The other variety is vestibular stimulation or movement, which is swinging the body, swaying the body, dancing, spinning around. These are all things that we are good at helping children to do. We often will recognise children will naturally spin in circles, or run around in circles, or want to go on a swing, or want to dance around or jump off something. That is them meeting their own vestibular stimulation needs. We forget to do that as adults unless we're really aware of this stuff. We also need sometimes more tactile stimulation. So that is the sense of touch, but it's sort of going into more fine-grained detail around what would feel nice. Do you want to feel smooth surfaces? Do you want to feel texture? Do you want to dig in the dirt? Do you want to move your hands in specific ways, like flicking things or twirling things, like hair twirling? My hair's not long enough these days to twirl it. Even tactile stimulation in the mouth, such as chewing things that are crunchy. We often have cravings to eat certain foods, not because of the taste only. Often it's because we want to feel that texture and have that tactile stimulation. So there's a lot that I've covered there, just kind of thrown it all out there at you. But that's just giving you a really brief overview of the ways that our bodies crave a reduction in stimulation, and the craving for silence is an evolutionary thing that we've lost touch with. When you think about us, I think one of the ways to have a healthier nervous system is to remember our hunter-gatherer ancestors and realise that we used to spend a lot of time in silence or in nature, as much as you can have silence in nature. we would have the restful sounds of nature all around us all day, every day. We wouldn't have artificial sounds assaulting our nervous system. And so we almost need to discipline ourselves to come back to claiming some of that silence, being in nature, not having the headphones in, not playing something in the car when we're driving, not taking entertainment with us everywhere, and also realizing on a finer tuned basis what we do stimulate, what we do expose ourselves to, how is it making us feel? So do you sometimes come away from a television program you're watching feeling really worked up, or your heart's racing, or your mind's racing? Do you sometimes think, I shouldn't have watched that thing at 8 o'clock at night because now I can't wind down, I can't get to sleep? That's me. I can't watch stimulating things after about probably 6 p.m., to be honest, because I get very engaged. For those who don't know, I'm a self-realised autistic woman. I get very immersed in things. So if I'm watching something that's a drama on television, a film, or even a documentary, they can actually sometimes be harder for me to detach from. I get very immersed in the story, and my empathy is so high that I almost become that character, and it takes me a while to pull back and release the attachment to what I've absorbed. So I don't know if anybody else can relate to that, but it means that it's probably preferable for me to watch entertaining content like films and documentaries and TV series during the afternoon rather than at night. At nighttime, and this actually feeds beautifully into the Ayurvedic health system as well. At nighttime, we're meant to be in wind down mode, not entertainment mode. So that's when we dim the lights, we dampen down sounds, we close curtains, we cozy in. It's like the old being around the campfire where the focal point is the campfire and the television is the modern campfire. But not the most restful campfire for all people. If you imagine the difference between gazing into the flames of a campfire compared to gazing at the noise and movement of a television, it's really different for our brains. Any brain, I would say, but for a sensitive brain, even more so. So this is just something to begin pondering, and this is about self-responsibility at the end of the day. It's about saying, I get to choose how I feel day to day. And if I can recognise that I'm making choices that are leading to a sense of nervous system overload, maybe I can make different choices. This is what it's all about. Okay, so if you feel like it and you are interested in contributing in the chat, I've got a little question for you to ponder. You might just want to write it down on a notebook if you've got a notebook in front of you and you just want to have a think about this to come back to later. So you might want to note down 2 different topics here. What would you like to reduce in your life after hearing me talk about that stuff? What sort of content would you be willing to reduce? And what would you be willing to do more of? What do you already recognise that you need to do? If it's movement, it might be, going for a walk every day is one of the movements that my body craves, or doing some yoga or dancing around is something that I need. Or I really know that I need a fidget toy when I'm working or studying. I really love reading. So it just might be anything that you might want to just commit to right in this moment that feels valuable to record. And Tatiana's saying she's even found some types of meditation music can make her feel agitated. Absolutely. Some guided meditation voices can be really hard to listen to. And we have to tune in and go, this is just not for me. Sometimes we can get used to them. I've got a particular podcast that I love, and I had to get used to the voice of one of the main hosts because I found her voice hard to listen to just because it's very different to what I find soothing. But I've gotten used to her over time and now I don't even notice it. So sometimes we can push ourselves to acclimatise. And AJ has said, yeah, in response to Tatiana, their voice thing. Sorry, I said it without even seeing what you recognised, AJ. Thank you. And yeah, Louise is saying reduce screen time and increase movement. Cool. Cool. It's really nice to start reflecting as we learn and say, yeah, that's resonating, and I am going to write down some things that I'm going to take action on. We really get to be accountable when we write stuff down and remember it. So the other really big part of this is that those of us who have a high amount of empathy and have a neurodivergent brain, or just recognise that we're sensitive, is that we can be psychic sponges. We take on the troubles of the world really easily. I bet you some of you are recognising this in yourselves. We give too much in relationships, in our work, if we do some sort of a caregiving or helping job, and we can end up feeling responsible for other people's feelings. And this is very much the domain of women in our culture. Some men do this as well. I'm not saying that no men do it, but mostly this is the domain of the feminine energy. It is the role that women have been handed in our culture to be the caregivers, to be the ones that are self-sacrificing. And we also need to recognise that that is important work that we do, and we need downtime from it. So if you know that you feel the energy as soon as you walk into a room, or you're a really good listener with your friends, or you find some of your friends really overwhelming, or that you spend a lot of time worrying about other people, this is a good thing to recognise and know that there is some choice in this. We don't have to choose that all the time. And this is also about claiming nervous system resets, like just acclimatising to silence and prizing silence in our week. So maybe doing something really simple like every Saturday morning, I devote 2 or 3 hours to not talking, not listening to anything, not watching anything, and just moving around doing whatever I feel like I need to do. And that could include doing some housework or some shopping, or some exercise, but being really mindful that there's no other stimulation being added to those activities. So I think in The Artist's Way, the woman who wrote that, her name, I can't remember, everybody knows the book, The Artist's Way. Got it behind me on the shelf. I remember her saying that she has a whole sort of half a day every week where she doesn't talk or listen to anybody. So, and that was written 20 years ago. So that was before all of the opportunities we now have. This also means being really, can involve being assertive around saying to people, when you've made plans and you actually decide you need to cancel them, you need to pull out of things, to actually create a language around having a social battery that's run out, or just saying, I'm all out of social energy, I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to reschedule, I can't do that. That might feel really scary and confronting, but it is really valuable, a really valuable tool to have in our back pocket, to say, I am not going to be able to enjoy that activity. I need to pull back. I need some rest. I need to recognise my state of feeling burdened or overwhelmed. And yeah, another type of language could just be, I'm all out of social energy, or I don't have any energy in general. And when you have beautiful friends in the same tribe as you, everyone gets it, and everyone gets to practice it together once you introduce it, if it hasn't already been introduced into your friendship group. There's also an amazing benefit to starting to work out what is comforting for you. How do you find comfort? Is it through a bath? Is it through meditation? Is it through a hot drink of some sort? Is it through certain clothing, blankets, a particular room? having darkness, having a candle lit, having incense, having crystals. I'm wearing my little rose quartz tonight. That just was speaking to me. And I'm actually wearing inside my stretchy crop top a really big chunk of rose quartz because it just feels really comforting for me today. I'm not feeling 100% well. I feel like I've just got this really, really minor virus lingering. And I had a big rest earlier today because I was able to. So what is comforting? And don't deny your needs. We may have grown up believing that we had to deny our own needs to be a good person, and it's that whole feminine burden in our culture of self-sacrifice that many of us have taken on from the role models of our mothers and grandmothers. We can put that away. We can pop it down now and say it is not benefiting anybody when I self-sacrifice. It's a hard one. It's a hard one to recognise, and it's an even harder belief to put down. But it's good to notice when we're doing it and say, oh, I'm really self-sacrificing right now. I'm denying my own needs in this moment. And if any of you saw my post a few days ago, I did that on Thursday night and I knew exactly what was happening and I could recognise it later. But I had trouble because I'd already gone so far into an autistic shutdown. I wasn't able to use mental flexibility to work out how to handle that. And then it led to a fairly minor meltdown, but I don't normally experience meltdowns. I did when I was a kid, but it's not something that I've really had in my repertoire in the last 20 or so years, only one other time, 6 years ago, because I'm pretty effective at shutting down. That's the way that I tend to go, and that's not necessarily a good thing. It's just my go-to is I just shut down, close down, stop being able to interact. And then that usually ends up in just feeling tired and needing to go to sleep. And then by the morning, I feel a bit better. I also want to just raise something specific to this week we've just had, and that sensitive people, I believe that part of my intense experience on Thursday was in response to the geomagnetic storms we had last weekend that caused the auroras around the world. That solar light, that solar energy, that radiation coming onto the planet, it blows our circuits. And I pride myself on pretty good self-care. I also have had a lot of other factors in my life out of my control to do with other people and other events going on in my own personal life that were contributing. But that geomagnetic storm, woo, I don't think we felt it until a few days afterwards, and that's what happened to me. Some of us had sleeplessness, some of us had racing heart, just body tension, aches and pains, more vulnerable to feeling unwell, feeling like we couldn't cope, being emotional, all those things. So, yeah, thanks for your comments. Everyone's popping in. Yeah, candles and tea, they're a favourite of mine, Tatiana. I got a candle lit behind me on the shelf. I did some incense before we started today. And I mentioned it in my YouTube video that I've made recently, this beautiful lamb's wool little thing rug that sits on my chair that just feels nice. It's got a nice comforting texture that's appealing for me. It wouldn't be for everybody. When I was a little autistic girl, I couldn't wear any wool because everything itched on me, but I have more tolerance for different textures now that I'm older, and many years of healing with various modalities have really supported me, such as kinesiology and flower essences. Beautiful. Okay, I'm loving all the little messages in the chat. It's so nice to interact in that way if you feel like it, so no judgment if you don't. Beautiful. Yeah, it's so nice to draw while you're listening, Asta. I did a beautiful 6-week music therapy program with a gorgeous woman named Alison Davies, which some of you may have come across, she lives in Tasmania, a beautiful neurodivergent woman who shares a lot of fabulous information about the power of music and singing for all of us as a therapy. And it was weird. I think I found the information very comforting and reassuring, but I also found it very stimulating because I actually drew the whole time I was listening to her talking. I just had coloured pencils in front of me and I was just doing random shapes and colouring them in. And it felt like I could receive the information better because I was drawing. And that's not a really familiar thing for me, but it almost felt like Alison's energy invited that. And it came through as an inspiration. She didn't say it, but it came through as an inspiration because I have some coloured pencils sitting in a cup on my desk. I just grabbed them and a bit of paper and I was just doing that. So yeah, we need to listen. So this is where we're heading. We're heading into this idea of listening within to enable us to know what we need. So coming back to the idea, before I go too much further on into the next topic, the idea of a sensory audit, I encourage you to look at information about sensory diets. A lot of children will, through having occupational therapy sessions, may receive, if they've received an autism diagnosis in particular, they may receive a bit of an assessment and then documentation and a plan around having a sensory diet, which might include all the things that I spoke about with reducing certain stimulation and increasing others. So having less visual and auditory stimulation potentially, and having more body stimulation through proprioception and vestibular stimulation and movement, which includes movement, and tactile stimulation that feels comforting. So some people, whether they're a child or an adult, like playing with putty or slime. I can't stand that sort of stuff. I hate having sticky things on my fingers, so that is not me. But I think I could enjoy something that was just like rolling. So there's a few stim toys that roll in your fingertips. Not really into spinning things so much, but we're all into different things, and sometimes moving things with our fingers can really help. I know that by the end of a work day, when I've been talking to clients, I really want to crunch on crackers and nuts. It feels like I want to do crunching and moving my mouth vigorously. So I've recognized that in myself, and that can be it's probably letting out excess energy that has been stored because I'm taking in a lot. I'm also giving a lot, but I'm taking in a lot of energetic information and emotion with my client work. So we're all different. So, and a sensory audit might be just maybe keeping a diary for 3 weeks where you recognize at the end of the day, you might just sort of do some reflection on how am I feeling? What was I exposed to today? What can I reflect on that was too much? Either with the visual and the auditory is usually what we're doing too much of, or emotional, taking on too much emotional input. What can I reflect on that wasn't enough? And you just tune in. Your brain doesn't need to get overly analytical. Your body, your nervous system, your spirit will tell you. So yeah, maybe keeping a diary for 3 weeks as a way of reflecting and modifying and challenging ourselves to do a bit of a detox. I've been doing a stimulation detox for the last 3 or 4 days now, and believe me, it was actually quite hard on Friday, Saturday and Sunday to not watch this astrology YouTube videos that I wanted to watch, to not listen to the podcast that I absolutely love, to not talk to a friend on the phone for an hour when I'd scheduled to do that. I had to pull back from a few things. I still did a few things, but I had to pull back with this awareness that I needed to reset and be more comfortable in silence, because we get addicted to the stimulation. It's very fulfilling. It's very absorbing. We feel like we're doing something productive when we absorb and consume. It's actually not true that we're doing anything productive necessarily. But we've bought into this idea that if I'm learning something, if I'm listening to people talking in a podcast, I'm being productive. And when we're productive, we're good people. That's what our culture tells us. Yeah, the astrology podcasts are very addictive for me because I'm obsessed with astrology. It's my special interest. So, yeah, I'm with you, AJ. It's like, I've got to actually make myself just pull back, just know that it's actually not always good for me. We've got to detox, and then we can then actually be comfortable with silence. We don't know how to be comfortable with it when we're on that sort of that cycle or that mode. It's like a mode of functioning where we're just consuming. It's really hard to pull back. It's an addictive form of brain activity. So some of us can tolerate more than others, and at different times we can tolerate more than others. So we just need to be aware of where we're at and how it's affecting us potentially. Yeah, it's definitely a trauma response, AJ. I noticed that leading up to my meltdown on Thursday night, I was just having a little bit more sugar than usual, and I was absorbing entertainment in the evenings that was beyond what I would normally let myself be exposed to. So it's like our brain says, do more, have more, experience more, have more of whatever. And it wasn't like a lot of extra sugar, but I really like those dark chocolate bullets. And I can usually stop at a handful. I'm like, yeah, it's just an after dinner thing, like yum, 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 gone. And I was going back for more. And that's not what I'm normally doing. So I was like, something's going on here. There was a gradual build up happening. Yeah, it's definitely a craving. It's like we get wound up to a point. Yeah, we get wound up to a point where we think the stimulation is the answer. And it is a feeling of never enough. Like I just need more and I need more and I need more. When you get that empty feeling of I need something outside of me, that's a really good signal. When we ever think that, I need another person to do something, I need another activity to do something, I need food, I need alcohol, I need sugar, I need work, whatever it might be, if it's outside of you, that's a really good sign that you need to connect back in and slow it all down. Yeah. Yeah, the binging on TV series is not something that I engage in. I already know that it's not, I just know that it's not comfortable for me to even begin that journey, but it's a really common form of self-soothing, which can end up being overstimulating. So we're all different. We're all wired differently. Nobody's wrong or right. And we all relate to different things in different ways. I'm super sensitive to entertainment, and I know I've always have been. I also want to recognise I'm 53 years old, people. I've come a long way in this lifetime. I'm a lot older than some of you. So I should, and I've chosen a journey where I actually have to work on myself. So yeah, I've only worked a lot of this out through trial and error and knowing what feels good and knowing what serves me so that I can be of service. So ultimately, for most of us, we need to slow things down. We need to prioritise sleep. We need to recognise our own circadian rhythm. Are you more of a night owl? Do you need to take more time to wake up in the morning? Are you an early riser? Is that what works for you? Not applying anybody else's ideas around this stuff. If you are menstruating, then knowing your menstrual cycle, how that impacts you, learning about menstrual cycle energy flow, when there's a few weeks of being outward focused and a couple of weeks of being more inward focused, knowing the lunar cycle and how the moon affects you, whether you're menstruating or not. That is also really important as well. Those of you who are listening to this, watching it later, I want you to know, if you're part of this community that resonates with what I'm saying, we were not made for the modern world. We are more prone to burnout. We are more prone to chronic illnesses, allergies, frequent colds, things catching up with us emotionally, feeling mentally drained, feeling a sense of fatigue. We're just more prone to that. And therefore, we are more prone to accumulating stress through our lives and lacking enjoyment, lacking pleasure and joy because of the stress load that we're carrying. So this is all about addressing that. So we are moving now, that took a long time to talk about, we're moving now into the leaning into our intellect over our intuition topic. So this isn't a very complicated thing to discuss, and it's very related to what I've already said. When we are sensitive, we often lean into the intellect to make our brain strong, to make our thinking powers strong in order to cope. But then our logical brain runs the show and we forget to follow our body wisdom, and we forget to be connected to ourselves and what we really need. So that was my story up into my early 30s, and it was having my children that really alerted me to how I believed I was in control of my life by being very mentally sharp and being very plan orientated, goal orientated, achievement orientated, controlling my environment as best I could, controlling other people as best I could, potentially, and having a lot of rigidity in what I could and couldn't do based on previous experiences of my own sensitivities, but also just, I suppose, thinking that if I worked it out mentally and problem solved it in the brain, then I wouldn't encounter any problems. I could foresee problems and not go through additional stress. So it meant that I became rigid and controlling, but I was also very anxious. Having children eliminated my belief in being able to control things, particularly because I had a difficult first birth. It didn't pan out how I wanted, so that was a gift. It's a big awakening gift. And since my early 30s, so we're talking 20 years ago now, I've realised that I need to connect with my body every day. I need to trust this body. This is my spiritual vessel. It's my ally. It's my friend. I need to listen to it. I need to have techniques such as meditation and yoga and dancing and walking and just breathing and pausing to pay attention to what it needs. And then I have a smoother life. It's not perfect, still not perfect, obviously, but it's the path to having a better life where we can have more authenticity, more joy, more pleasure, more connection. So we all need things like creative outlets to do this. We need to have the arts, writing, crafts, dancing, music, journaling, whatever you like, sculpture, clay work, macrame, it doesn't matter what it is, things that you do with your hands, things where you have an output of some sort that is creative. And it is not true that you are not creative. Every human being is creative. Putting flowers in a vase or cooking a meal is creative. So embodying that feminine energy of creativity, that is a way back into our bodies and into our intuition. That is a definite way. Yes, I have had my Chiron return, AJ. Yes. That was beautiful and powerful, and I love being in my 50s. It's very liberating and we can all look forward to it. And I want to represent being in 50s as being empowering postmenopausal woman. Yeah, living her life and still being very creative and productive and contributing. Nice to get that support. Okay, we also need movement. So we need creative outlets and we need movement. We need to move the body, and that can be combined. The creativity can be the movement, But if we do creative outlets that are sedentary, like painting and drawing and journaling, we need to make sure we move our bodies every day. Being a long-term practicer of yoga, I started doing yoga in the late 80s, early 90s, when nobody had even heard of yoga in Australia. Found some yoga teachers. My mum had a little yoga book from the 70s on our bookshelf when I was growing up, and I used to little black and white photos in a little sort of paperback, and it was a man in an Indian man in a leotard. It was very attractive. I used to pull that book off the shelf as a child and emulate the postures. And my activities after dinner at night would often be setting up little thin foam mattresses in a hallway and doing gymnastics. So I'm a highly physical person. I need to move my body. That's me. I need to move every day. I'm an Aries rising. I know that about my vitality as an Aries rising, that we need to move. We're all different with this as well. So some of us will need to move moderately, some will need to move more strongly. I don't actually need to move strongly, but I just need to move somewhat every day. Some of us need to move only a small amount, but we need to know that we've done it each day. So it could just be walking gently. It could be gardening. It could be just some gentle stretches, some qigong, yoga, dance, tai chi, beautiful stretching and moving of the limbs and getting the lymph flowing, getting the blood flowing through the body, and transferring energy. So we're getting a flow of energy through the body when we move it. We're letting things go and we're allowing emotion to come up. The beautiful thing about dance is that it can bring emotion forward. So if you're somebody who struggles to cry or recognize the need to cry, then moving the body with yoga and dance and other modalities like qigong and tai chi can be a really great way of freeing up emotion so that we get to experience it and let it flow out. Okay, so let's move on to emotional connection and vulnerability. One of the things sensitive women have often learned in childhood is that it's not safe to have needs. Just going to throw it out there. So if you grew up in a family where there was some tension, it was fraught, there was conflict in the family, there was mental health concerns in the family, financial stress, relationship stress, parents that were not particularly connected to one another or to the children, or there was actual danger in your childhood where there was violence and abuse, you would have grown up, especially if you were a firstborn girl, but any girl in a family often becomes a caregiver, peacekeeper, somebody who smooths things over, and it will lead you being hypervigilant outside yourself. So when you're looking outwards all the time as a child, believing you have to monitor the caregivers to see if they're okay, that you may be modifying your own behaviour to try to control their behaviour. So if you've made some decisions at the age of 2 or 3, which is how young we can start doing this, to make this assumption that when I'm good, they're not shouting, that's really problematic for us as a little person, because that may not really be true. They still may shout even if we are good, but we can end up feeling responsible for other people's feelings from a very young age. And this is a type of conditioning that goes in deep. It then leads us to believe that we have to check in with other people's needs before we meet our own. So we miss out on connection through being vulnerable in relationships because we haven't learned that it's safe to be emotionally vulnerable and open. We've learned that it's unsafe because we've believed that to be loved means to be good or to be a child without needs. This is just giving a really quick overview. This is not going into all the psychology. So what we want to be able to embrace as an adult is that we can have needs and we can expect the people who we love and who love us to meet our needs. to start realizing that if we're choosing relationships that are okay for us, they don't have to be perfect, but if they're okay, if they're safe, then those people, and this can be friendships, it can be partnerships, that those people can be trusted to meet our needs, and we can actually have needs with these people. I'm still learning this. This is something that I'm working on right now, and I'm getting better at it. The other thing to keep in our minds is, and to be kind to ourselves as we develop this greater capacity to vulnerability in relationships, is that as a sensitive person, and particularly as a neurodivergent person, if we are one, we may in our youth and our early adult years have been more vulnerable to being manipulated by others. So we can often take things too much at face value, to be take things literally, and to be very trusting. So that can be problematic because we may have actually been manipulated and treated badly by people in the past, which will damage our sense of self-trust and trust of the world. So that's a feature of a lot of people who fit these descriptions that we're talking about in this session today. And my heart goes out to you if you've been in those situations, and I hope you have received adequate support and healing over the years to help you recover from those situations and to rebuild that sense of trust, that you can actually trust people and you can start trusting your inner guidance to know who's trustworthy. So when we put ourselves first, we are coming from this grounded, calm, stable sense of I'm okay. That's what we're doing. Whenever we put ourselves first with monitoring our well-being, looking after our nervous system, looking after our emotional well-being, our physical needs, we're actually creating a stable internal sense of I'm okay, I can trust the world, I'm meant to be here. Mother Earth is part of me and she's here for me. That's another part of the body connection piece, is connecting to Mother Earth energy. We enable ourselves to find our tribe, and that can happen at any age. I began finding my tribe in my early 40s. I still have friends from my youth, but they kind of came along with me enough. And I really, to be honest, didn't make any lasting friendships in my 20s and 30s. I kind of did with my kids. I've got 2 lasting friendships from playgroup with my children, one more so than the other. So I didn't make a lot of deep, dependable friendships until I hit my 40s and I really started claiming my spiritual gifts. And I created a lifestyle that was really, by moving down south and having a simpler lifestyle, that was when I began being able to step out more confidently and do things like running a women's meditation group in Dunsborough for 4 years and meeting all my friends through that, putting myself out there as a spiritual mentor and meeting people in sessions and trusting my abilities to channel information. That all started over the age of 40. So it can happen at any age. There's no right age. For me, it was then. But it's a journey worth taking. So we're getting closer to doing the meditation now. Thank you so much for bearing with me through all of that talking. I hope that it's felt nourishing and helpful. I'm not going to say too much about my 7-week program. It's not fully ready for enrolments yet. It's going to include some of the topics we've spoken about today are going to be explored, and there's going to be more activities that we delve into to do things like body connection, connecting to the higher self, connecting to intuition, connecting to your spiritual gifts, learning more about your path, your spiritual path as a healer, helper, light worker, empath. That's kind of going to be what we kind of move through in the 7 weeks. It's going to be on a Monday evening, not this time. It's going to be, I'm pretty sure it's going to be at 6 p.m. Australian Western Standard Time. And it'll run for an hour and a half each week. It is a beta version of the program, so it will be offered at half the price of the eventual program. And it will only be open to around about 8 women total. So I don't mind within that amount of people how many I get, I'll still run it. So it'll only be available to a small number of people because I want to keep it intimate for this first run through. So you will all receive an email with more information about this probably later this week, and you can also book in that website page that you'll be linked to. You'll be able to book a 15-minute clarity call with me to talk about it from your own perspective, whether it's going to be good for you or not. And if you, just a little disclaimer, if you are a current psychology client of mine or you've worked with me as a psychology client in the last 6 months, unfortunately you aren't able to join that group for ethical reasons and regulatory reasons with how we are regulated as psychologists in Australia. But that is just the way it is. Anybody else who isn't currently seeing me as a psychology client or have not seen me for 6 months as a psychology client are open to exploring that with me. The course is called Sensitive is Powerful, and it is really to provide life skills and a really good support network and a tribe for women wanting to step more onto their spiritual path, what they want to do in the world. Beautiful. All right. So that was a little sales pitch. So for the guided meditation, I invite you to get comfortable and think about even lying down on the floor or on the couch or on the bed, wherever you may be. You don't need to see the screen. You just need to be able to hear me for this part. We're all going to be closing our eyes down, potentially anyway. So this is going to be your time to really connect, really take some space from the busy intellect that's been engaged for the first hour of our time together, and tune into yourself. So when you're ready, and if you feel safe to do so, just closing the eyes down, gathering your energy into your fields and body, knowing that we have multiple dimensional versions of ourselves, and we want to do our best to just bring it all in, centering all parts of you, past and future, bringing them all into this moment of now. And in order to do that, you may wish to visualize that there is a beautiful column of light illuminating your chakra system from your feet as they connect to Mother Earth energy, up into your base chakra, your sacral chakra in the pelvis, navel, your solar plexus, your beautiful heart chakra lighting up with this column of light, feeling spacious and open, your throat chakra, the third eye in the center of the head, the crown, and then the number of chakras that sit in space above the top of our heads that connect us up into the cosmos, to our guides, to our spiritual teachers, our ancestors, the ascended masters and angels, the dragons and the unicorns, intergalactic beings that are all here for us now. sitting in awe of your work here on the planet in physical form, surrounding you with their love. And throughout this visualization, you are invited to stay connected to the body through your breath. So as the mind wanders, as it will, use the breath as an anchor. Use the physical sensation of the breath moving in the chest and the abdomen as a way of coming back. Your mind is very welcome. Your mind is a part of your beauty, your unique self. And it is also being given permission in this moment to rest, to quieten, to give over direction of yourself as a being into the heart energy. And let us visualize a beautiful pink light shining in the heart space. And with every inhalation, that pink light grows brighter. And we can see it growing larger as it expands out to surround the chest area, to surround the upper body, and to surround the whole physical body in this beautiful, soft pink heart light. You are safe in this heart light. When this heart light surrounds you, you have comfort in knowing what you need. You're beautifully connected to your higher wisdom. Breathing in, breathing out. And as you hold your attention in the heart space, a beautiful location starts to make itself clear to you. It is a beautiful garden seen by your mind's eye, coming into shape, coming into focus. Beautiful garden of yours, your own sacred place. This garden contains the most magnificent trees, lush green lawns, beautiful flowering plants, delightful pathways that wind through garden beds and groves of trees, flowing streams of water, a magnificent lake, beautiful waterfalls, hills in the distance, and the freshest air that you've ever experienced, soaking into your lungs and into your pores, soothing and healing you. Take in your surroundings. Enjoy looking around you at all the beauty. And then looking over to your left, you see that there is a little path winding through some trees that you feel compelled to follow. So walking over to that path and walking into the little forest. Look around you and take in the beautiful trees, the sound of birds, the presence of butterflies, dragonflies, other delightful insects such as bees. This is your sacred garden, and you feel so safe and comforted to be here. As you travel along the path in the forest, you notice that up ahead there seems to be a clearing that you're approaching. And as you keep walking forward, a little bit of excitement grows in you as you start seeing that in this clearing there is a small gathering, and the gathering is there to honour you. As you walk into the clearing, you see that there is a beautiful canopy set up, like a peaked tent with open sides. And under the tent are strewn beautiful, luxurious rugs and cushions. There is a centerpiece of spectacular flowers, candles, little carvings, objects of beauty. And as you arrive in the clearing, all of the beings, be they light beings, angels, animals, ancestors of yours, other spiritual supporters, gaze at you lovingly, and they take their places on cushions in a circle around the centerpiece. And there is one place left. It's a beautiful, plump cushion for you to walk over to and sit down upon to join the circle. The number of beings in the circle is of no consequence, because this is just a representation of your supporters. So whatever you perceive is perfect. And if indeed there has been some other visualization present itself, then proceed in that direction. Let my voice fade. If you are in the circle under the canopy, then take this moment and join hands with those that are sitting beside you as they all join hands or merge energy with one another in a beautiful circle of loving, sacred healing energy that is absolutely here for you. And allow yourself to receive that wave of energy into your heart space. As a soothing balm, recognizing your divinity, your purity, your innocence, and how important you are in this lifetime to be playing the role that you're playing. Just tune in now to your sacred nervous system and give it full permission to receive care. Notice what's happening in your body. Notice what's happening in the circle of being blessed, being loved, being healed. And all of the beings gathered there have a very specific message that they've collaborated on, that they want you to hear. So listen now to any words that come forth to be heard in your heart, to be seen as a visualization or a colour, an object, just a knowing. What would they wish you to know now? And to allow you to have an additional opportunity to receive information and guidance, they have prepared a visual symbol or word or message for you that is right in front of you in the beautiful centerpiece. Look down and you will see that there is a pile of oracle cards before you, and you may simply turn over the one on the top because that is the one for you to observe, experience. And as you turn it over, absorb what is there. Don't try too hard, just open to receive whatever glimpse or glimmer or sense that comes into your awareness with this card. And now that you have received what you came to receive in the circle, look around and give thanks to those who have gathered in your honour. You may wish to raise hands to prayer in the visualization or give them a little bow. Taking some deep breaths to really absorb those last moments of care and healing. And now, wishing the gathering farewell, you stand from your cushion, happily leaving the clearing by stepping back onto the path in the forest and journeying among the trees again, feeling lighter, feeling that much more at home in your own body, in your own life, knowing more about what you need, what is serving your highest good, feeling a sense of being reset in the nervous system. And as you emerge from that path back into your wider garden, you keep enjoying the surroundings and the beauty before coming back with your awareness into your heart space and commanding all energies of yourself to return to this moment of now by using the word unify in your mind 3 times. Unify, unify, unify. Commanding that you are now grounded, back in physical, back on planet Earth, in this moment of now. And now taking any time that you wish to take to gently move your body and open your eyes. If you wish to remain exactly where you are until we end the session in a few minutes, that is perfectly fine. If you wish to come back towards the screen and be able to see me again and participate in any sharing that we have available for our last 6 minutes, then feel free to do that as well. Absolutely no hurry, but if anybody would like to unmute and speak anything, share anything, say out loud what they received, note down anything you want to write down if you want to take a moment to do that, if there was anything you want to remember. Just taking your time. There's no hurry. We're doing very well on time. I haven't gone over time yet. And just be aware that whatever you share, it will be watched by other people who aren't here in this particular gathering. So have that as an awareness. There are 30 people registered for this, so there'll be a group of 30 who eventually watch it, and it will be sitting in YouTube as well. So just to declare that, in case you feel that you want to keep your thoughts more private than that, just so you know. But if you feel like sharing and you have a belief that the world is a safe place to do that in, then, as I clearly do, feel free to unmute and share. I can't see everybody clearly. It looks like nobody's unmuting at this point. That's okay. No pressure at all. probably turned you all off now saying it's going to be on YouTube. I only have 3 subscribers, so don't worry. I actually had a YouTube channel many years ago before I came back to psychology that I completely deleted. There would have been hundreds of videos that I deleted to protect my registration as a psychologist because there was some fairly interesting spiritual stuff that I channeled. And I didn't feel like it was safe to have it out there in the world, which I was very comfortable to do, actually. It was actually quite a nice cleanse to just go delete. Gone. So I'm starting from scratch with my little 3 videos that are sitting there right now. Well, last call for contributions before we say goodbye. And feel free to chat in the chat box if you don't feel like speaking. The chat won't be in the video that's shared. All right. Well, we'll finish right on time. Thank you so much to everybody for registering. Oh, thank you, Judy. That's lovely. Appreciate that. Go into your evenings gently and hope you have a beautiful sleep tonight. I actually feel so much better in my body and in my health after doing that. So gratitude to you for giving me the platform and the opportunity to channel, because I always receive healing when I do it. So I think I'm going to feel so good after signing off. But thank you for everyone who did manage to be here live and all those who are watching later. And lots of love to you all in this very exciting world that we live in, with a lot of change going on and a lot of challenge. And beautiful to have people like you in my world. So you'll get the recording tomorrow. I'm actually not going to put pressure on myself to do it tonight, as is my normal pressure. It'll take me a while to upload it into YouTube because it's an hour and a half. So yeah, it'll come through by email tomorrow, and you can either rewatch it or feel free to share it with people. That's all good. But yeah, much love, and I hope the rest of your week is awesome. And I will then now say goodbye. Bye, everyone.